Hello everyone, I'm going to give this a try. I don't really have a whole lot of clever visuals for this, so it was really just gonna be me talking, and I thought I'd just do it on my way out and about, so I'll give you some visuals to work with here. But what I want to talk about is monopolies, specifically the idea that a free market will naturally create monopolies, and that's why they're terrible, because there'll be just one corporation will take over all the other, and they'll just screw everyone and things like that. So I want to do a little thought experiment about that, just to see what would happen in a truly free market without any sort of government. So we'll have a town where we have 5 hardware stores. And those hardware stores are owned by Alice, Bob, Carol, David, and Aaron. And Alice really wants a monopoly in hardware stores. So she saves up a lot of money, and she's going to do what everyone says you can do. You just buy up all the hardware stores, then you get a monopoly, and then you can raise prices through the roof and make $1 zillion. So she saved up $1 million. She goes to Bob, says, I'll buy your hardware store for $1 million. He agrees. Now she's got it. Well, she thinks that was easy. So she goes to Carol. Now, she doesn't have another $1 million to buy, but she can get a loan. She's got a couple million in assets. She can handle going into debt a little bit. She goes to Carol and says, I'll buy your hardware store for $1 million. She says, okay, and sells it. Hey, this is easy. We're halfway done. This should be a piece of cake, right? So she goes to David. Says, I'll buy your hardware store for $1 million. David says, 10 million. She's like, what? 10 million? Your store is worth $1 million. It's like, if you're buying, it's worth 10 million. Because you see, it doesn't take long for them to figure out what she's up to. She's buying up all the hardware stores. It's supply and demand. And if she's demanding, he's supplying. So she kind of grumbles a bit, but finally acquiesces, gets a loan for $10 million, and buys this hardware store, because she figures that once she has a monopoly, that'll be it. She'll be able to easily jack up her prices and easily make that money back and then some. So she's feeling pretty good about herself, and so she goes to Aaron. Aaron says, I'm not selling. It's like, what? I'm not selling. I'll give you $10 million. I'm not selling. I'm not selling for any price. Because you see, my great-grandfather created this hardware store. And then he gave it to my grandfather, who passed it down to my mother, who passed it down to me. And when I have a child, I'll pass this hardware store down to him or her. It's not for sale. Now, Alice is completely flummoxed by this. She has nothing she can do. She's foiled. Because you see, I don't understand why it is that people seem to think, oh, you'll just buy it out from under you. No. You have to agree to sell it. You have to agree to sell your hardware store, and if she's not agreeing, it doesn't get sold, and Alice doesn't get it. That's it. We're done. Can't happen. Completely foiled. There's no way to do it. And remember, there's no government. There's no one she can go to try and cozy up favors to have her property condemned or seized through eminent domain or anything like that. Can't get any favorable legislation passed to make it more difficult for Aaron to do things. That's it. If they're not gonna sell, there's nothing more to be done. But I can hear you say, well, there's no guarantee of that, so what if she just sells it? Okay, she says, fine, I'll sell it to you. I hated this place anyway. Great-granddad was an idiot. Take it off my hands, you're doing me a favor. Okay, so Alice has won, right? And she's rubbing her hands with glee at the monopoly she now has. walking down the street feeling pretty good for herself. She runs by a construction zone, and there's a sign in front of it that says future site of Frank's Hardware. And standing outside there is Frank, and he says to her, "Want to buy a hardware store?" Because again, people have figured out what she's up to. This actually happened, for example, when Standard Oil went around buying up the smaller oil companies. People were making oil startups just so they could sell them to Standard Oil. But even if that doesn't happen, Frank still has, this is a good business opportunity there. Only one hardware store in town, well 5, but all owned by the same person, who's jacked up her prices because she's now $12 million in debt. Well, hey, that's a good opportunity. He can go in and undercut her prices. And while she's stewing about that, she's walking and sees another construction zone. It says, future site of Bob's Tool Emporium. You see, she bought the hardware store from Bob, but there's nothing that says Bob can't create another one, huh? And even if she did buy the trademarks and other intellectual property, which really wouldn't exist, but anyway, let's say it did, and she bought Bob's Hardware, well, this isn't Bob's Hardware, this is Bob's Tool Emporium. Bob with his cool million, buying another one completely debt-free. Again, he'll be able to undercut her prices. And as she's just walking around fuming about that, she sees a giant construction area. And it says, future site of David and Carol's Big Box Hardware. Because remember, they got 11 million between them. They've joined forces. They're going to make a big hardware store. Tons of selection. There is no way that Alice can compete with all this. Even if she does momentarily get a monopoly, she can't stop any other hardware stores from being built. And she has no way of competing with them because she's put herself so far in debt, it's just not going to work. So, that's it. It's just not going to work in a free market. You got to have some kind of government to have the coercive infrastructure to be able to make a monopoly happen and to make it last. In a free market, it doesn't work. The drive for competition is too hard. It's impossible to have a monopoly and keep it going for very long. Unlike government, which creates monopolies all over the place and makes us think it's for our own good. So, thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the comment God, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and be free.